Consciousness is vast, reality is fluid, and what we call the paranormal may just be part of the human experience. We move through life searching for certainty, but every so often something happens that challenges what we think we know. A flicker of movement in an empty room, an intuition too strong to ignore, or a moment that lingers long after it's passed. Some call it supernatural, others call it psychological, but maybe it's both. I'm Mallorie, a therapist exploring the threshold between psychology, the supernatural, and the transformations that happen in between. Whether it's unexplained phenomena, personal awakenings, or the ways our subconscious and the unknown intertwine, this is a space to wonder, to question, and to explore what these experiences mean for us. Because what matters most isn't what we experience, it's how it transforms us. Welcome to the Liminal Mind. Welcome back to the Liminal Mind. This is part 4 of my conversation with Jess, psychic medium, hypnotherapist, and intuitive healer. In this final installment of our series, we explore a deeply integrative side of her work, shamanic practice. We begin with a broad overview of what shamanic healing can look like, and then Jess shares her personal experience and training in a lineage from Peru. We talk about what it means to take a shamanic journey, how it supports healing on an energetic and soul level, and how community, connection, and reverence are essential parts of this process. Whether you're brand new to these ideas or already working with spiritual tools, this episode offers a grounded, heart-centered look at how ancient practices can support modern healing. Let's dive in. If we can kind of link this to some of your shamanic practices.
Sure.
In at least the journeys that I've done, we can go to like different levels.
Mm-hmm.
And so different beings will kind of interact on different levels.
Right.
You can maybe give a brief overview of past, present, future, and kind of where you go during journeys, but bringing in, how do those shamanic practices intersect or enhance the mediumship and the subconscious?
Just to clarify, we're using the term shamanic. These are practices that cultures all around the world would have their own version of.
Right.
I just happen to have been taught a version that comes from Peru, from the Q'ero people of Peru. So that's what I'm going to speak to, because that's the one that I know best, even though I am not Peruvian or any of those things. But they work with a concept of upper world, middle world, and lower world. And it roughly translates to like superconscious, spiritual stuff is upper world. Middle world is the here and now. That would be like the conscious mind. It's your everyday life type of thing. And lower world is like the subconscious. And you travel between these worlds, these realms, often using some kind of repetitive rhythm. Typically a drum beat, could be a rattling, it could be a repetitive movement or something, but it entrains the brainwaves into this like lower alpha or theta state. And it's the same brainwave state we would use for hypnosis. It's the same we use when we tune in on somebody and give them a reading. It's the same thing that we enter into in meditation. We're all talking about the same thing. We're just using different language. In the shamanic work, you would go to upper world is more like when you're wanting to get information for that soul level, that sort of higher purpose. My destiny path, my life, all that kind of thing. Middle world is where we deal with, sometimes they laugh, like if you ever lost your keys or something, you go to middle world to find them. But it's also the world of mediumship in terms of ghosts or, hungry spirits kind of affecting you in your everyday life. You would deal with that from middle world. And then lower world is where your past life connections, it can be where you can go for certain kinds of healing. It's where you plant seeds of what you want to bring into your life. And any of these worlds they're all their own thing. They're full of different kinds of beings and creatures and plants and whatever that all have their own agenda, their own stuff. So you go there and everything communicates. So you get in the habit of being like, I could talk to this plant, or I could meet an animal spirit guide, or I could, it's a little bit like entering the idea of a Disney movie, Beauty and the Beast, where all the things are talking. And everything has its own wisdom, its own knowingness, its own purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It may want to interact with you and it may not. And you don't get to tell it what to do. Everything is its own unique self. You're working with guides, and you typically will have like lower world guides, upper world guides. They cross back and forth, though. You'll see them in both places. It just depends on kind of what you're doing. You work with what are called helpful, compassionate spirits, because some of the spirits, again, are just not interested in dealing with you. So just be like, whatever, leave me alone.
Mm-hmm.
You also work with animal guides or protectors. Different cultures have different beliefs around that.
Sure.
But the understanding is that the guides volunteer to help you. They are doing this as a service to you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to order them around or choose who they are. They chose you.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the animal spirit guides. Some may come into your life as lifelong partners, and some are there situation specific because
Mm-hmm.
they have a quality or power that is useful to you. As we're talking about therapy and dealing with healings and stuff like that, in this shamanic cultures, the whole community is behind you when you are working on something. Not like we do here where we're just rugged individuals and we're suffering silently in our homes by ourselves, or we finally get up the courage and we sit one-on-one with our therapist alone in the room. It's the whole village will like come together and drum for you or dance for you. Like we talked about, let's say somebody's having their manic episode. The cultures have a place for that. He's still fine, but he's going through whatever. For his own safety, we may tie him to the tree or something so he doesn't run off a cliff. But when he's back down to earth, we'll untie him and it'll be fine. There's not the same like stigma. There's not anything weird. It's just a normal part of being human. Occasionally, you will just need help. You will have something powerful happening where you need the intervention of your team, of your animal or your guide or whatever. They work often with the idea of soul loss or soul fragmentation. And we would call that sort of like with trauma, where a part just is kind of stuck in that. It's not like you're walking around incomplete. It's more like part of you that had agreed to be part of the human experience just was like, hell no.
This is too much.
This is too much. And went back to the like non-physical part. So you lose a little bit of your personal power as it takes it with it.
Okay.
They have the idea of needing extractions, which is where you've kind of like picking up lint. You've picked up energies that are not yours, that are not helpful. You need help removing these things.
So people would call attachments
or something like that, right? So it's a little bit like having parasites. If we just went for a walk in the summertime and I'm like, oh, Mallory, you have some ticks on you. Let me help you with that. You'd be like, oh, okay, great, thanks. Do I have any more?
Yeah.
It would be very matter of fact. That's how they treat this kind of thing. Not like you're unclean somehow. It's just you need help. You're out of balance.
Right.
And they work with the concept of balance. They call it like right relationship. It applies to everything in life. And when something has gotten out of balance, when you are not in the right relationship, you need to take steps to bring it back into balance. And that's what healing is. Let's say you've been overeating, junk food or something, and they might say you're not in right relationship with food. On a bigger scale, shamanic cultures, everything has life in its own way. So the bigger picture can get out of balance too.
Like consciousness.
Right. So you're part of it all. Like if you walk out in nature, there are no inanimate objects. Everything is a being. It might be being a pine cone, but it's a being. So you go out as everything in the natural world are your relatives. This is your family. It's a much different way of dealing with like, oh, I would like to prune this tree in my yard. I'm not just going to hack it down. I'm going to talk to it first. I'm going to ask it and say, I need to prune, for your health. And it's this idea of respect, like back and forth, and communication back and forth, which most of us in the US anyway, we have no frame of reference for kind of like this. Again, I came to it kind of by accident and went to a drum circle, and it felt like coming home. There was something about it that was just powerful and moving, and it made so much sense to me. It hit me in that space of being a kid, because when I was a kid, that feeling of like everything is alive and everything's communicating and I can feel it and I can sense it, or I was in that kind of a space without realizing it when I was a kid. And when I came to the core shamanism, it was like, wait a minute, this makes sense.
Oh, I remember this.
I remember this. This feels natural and normal. And for a lot of people who might struggle with some of those altered states, whether it's the sitting still for meditation or some kind of hypnotherapy or something, but again, they're learning to kind of work with that way of changing brainwave states, basically. A lot of people find the drumming to be helpful. In the background, this very steady sort of bum, bum, bum. It helps. It gives you a little boost. For people who might be struggling a little bit, try something like that. It's not melodic, because that'll get your thinking brain following the melody line. And all of us as human beings share that connection to a drum beat and the nature imagery. It's in your DNA as a human being.
Yeah, it's like the heartbeat.
Yeah.
You respond to that when you're in the womb. And so it's just another way of showing the spiral of how everything is connected.
It's all woven together. You can learn, it's called a journey. It's basically a meditation. It's a ceremony, but you can learn to do it for yourself. Or again, sometimes we all need help. You can go to someone, you can go to your shamanic practitioner, and they journey on your behalf. So they'll go and see, okay, are there things, do we need to entice part of the soul to come back? Do we need to do some extractions? Do we need to listen to the various wisdom keepers here? You should eat certain plants or have different sleep habits, or you need, whatever the thing is. It's also a way you can do past life reviews shamanically, which is another one that I often find for people who struggle a little bit. The more traditional hypnotherapy way do better when they do it as part of a journey. This, again, every different culture around the world would have been unique to them, but some of the principles are all the same, and that's that everything is connected, everything influences everything else, and that you're always working to maintain this state of right relationship. Again, I'm not from Nebraska originally, but we live here now. It's a prairie state. Sweet grass is part of our environment. The wild sage that grows is part of it. You don't want to just go out and kind of just grab it. It's considered to be alive. So you're asking it. You might say,
respectful.
Yeah. You might say, I would like cleansing of myself and my house. Could I pick some of you? Could I use you? And then you give it some kind of gift. As like the thank you. So anytime you're taking something, you're giving something.
The reciprocity.
The reciprocity is huge. So it might be as simple as like, hey, I have this pretty stone, or I brought you some coffee beans, or like whatever the thing is. It's just this idea of, it's not all take. It's like, what are you giving to? Explain yourself. It's another one of those liminal spaces where you're those in-between spaces. When we talk about it this way, it doesn't sound logical at all. It sounds like almost like silly. But when you're in it, it's amazing how like the level of information that comes to you, or the level of knowingness, or the healings that can happen and everything, and it happens fast. And then you are sort of like, what? Did that rock just, like talk to me? It's like, it did. I love the sort of community aspect of it often too, that the idea of we are supporting each other. There are some belief systems where the entire community has the same power animal, for example. So they're all invoking whatever it is on your behalf for you. So that feeling of like, you're not in this alone. You're part of our community. So we look out for you, instead of, hey, you're acting a little weird now. So we're just going to
ship you off
by yourself.
give you enough meds that you're not going to be
right
bothering people like
and that
Western.
We don't have in our society, we don't have those in between spaces. It's either this or that. It's good or it's bad. It's like, no, it just is. So like you're asking your clients, is this making you afraid or is this positive in your life? You're asking them to give it the meaning. And that's such an important part of it. Anytime we would do, I don't know if you remember with the drum circles we were doing before COVID hit.
Yeah.
But our leader, Sue, would go around and ask if anybody wanted to share what they got. She was never telling you what it meant. She was just like, what did that mean to you? Or how does that feel to you? Or you received a gift. What was it? Where did you put it? Which sounds weird, but sometimes it's like in my head or
in my
heart or something. And it's like, it makes total sense within that framework.
Right. And that can be pretty similar to this idea of like parts work, internal family systems that we use in psychotherapy. But it gets a little bit more into the somatic, like this part of you that experienced this trauma, or you can personify it a little bit more. So it's the same sort of idea of, I'm having a conversation with this tree. And it's like, is this real? This feels silly, but the exchange, you still get something out of it.
Oh, absolutely.
And so in the same sense, you might be talking to your 6-year-old self, and that 6-year-old self is saying, well, I think this thing is my fault, right? Whereas an adult, where you have your fully formed brain, you're like, there's no way that's your fault. How did you even come to that conclusion?
But you absorbed it in that way.
And that part of you sort of fragmented, right? It was like, I'm taking ownership for this because that's what I know. And so coming back to, talk to these parts and see how can we get everything back into balance.
Right.
Is the overall
So we're
goal.
working as a team rather than at cross purposes. So we do that also in hypnotherapy, this idea that especially when you're dealing with trauma, as you know, the coping mechanisms that the young child came up with to stay alive were maybe exactly the right thing for that time.
Right.
But as a grown adult, these coping mechanisms may now have become that they're in your way.
Right.
But there's that part of you that still thinks it's helping keep everybody safe.
Right.
So you have that conversation of like, thank you for your service. Thank you for getting us to this point. Then we're alive as a grown up. But now, wouldn't you like to stand down, to take a rest, and maybe we're going to try something else. And it's that establishing that everything gets heard, everything has a chance to express its viewpoint, and then finding that balance between them all. Of you were great. Now we're going to try this other thing. You can always weigh in if you need to. You have a question or you're not liking how things are going, you can. We'll use the idea of future self. There isn't only one future, right? So there's that idea of you're creating it all the time by the choices that you make. But there are more probable futures. So when we talk about futures, we talk about probabilities. And there may be 6 or 7 that are kind of there, but maybe 2 or 3 are the most probable. And so we can take a little trip because subconscious is timeless. So it doesn't have a sense of this hasn't happened yet. Somewhere it's happening. So we go play in that one. Let's see, what does that look like?
Right.
How does that play out? Okay, let's try this other one. Of the 3, which one feels like the best fit for where you are, like right now? Okay, so we're going to have future self kind of inform us backwards. What steps can you take right now, future self advising, to get to where I am? These are some things you might think about now, or these are some steps you might take, or these are some therapies or things that might be helpful in this moment. So you're, in a sense, advising yourself, but from this different perspective. And I love how something where your conscious brain, our thinking brain, wants to go, wait, what? I can't keep track of all this. And the subconscious is just like, no, I got it. Fast. Got it.
Yep.
I'm on it. And so if we can get out of our own way, it's not about thinking. It's about being, feeling, and all those other things.
Yeah. And so even when I do the ART, which is accelerated resolution therapy, it's very similar to EMDR.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little more directed,
Mm-hmm.
but it does kind of include these parts that you can work with. So the bilateral stimulation, relates back to that drumbeat of like this constant steady thing that you can kind of feel and sense that kind of lulls you into that state, right? Go back into some kind of trauma that you experienced, and we're not changing what happened. It happened, right?
Right.
But you can change the way that we learn to respond to things that remind us.
Yep.
Or we can go into what you're saying, like a future template where you're saying, this is what I want for myself. This is what this looks like. And this is what it feels like. So that you're kind of embodying that.
Right.
And this is where we get into these conversations of, it's all the same thing.
Exactly.
It's all the same thing.
It's all the same thing.
And, the frustration that I feel being a therapist and not being able, whatever reason, the insurance has parameters on what they will cover in a session.
Right.
And then, I'll get intuition of this could really be helpful for this person. And so even knowing I'm not going to necessarily do this in a session, but to touch base and ask, like, have you heard of this process? Or what are your thoughts on this? And I ask people about their religious or spiritual beliefs as part of my intake. But then when clients start to lean into, being more open to things, and I'm like, I have this friend. She does this thing and it's so good and it can be so helpful for you. Part of that is, I get frustrated with the limits or the containment on what I can do as a psychotherapist who's taking insurance, having, some different practices, being able to do informed consent. People who are not using insurance can kind of lean into some other things. And again, that's all about making sure people know and understand what they're signing up for. But for the things that I feel like I definitely can't do in a session, I love that I have people like you or people like Jen or, doing the different kinds of modalities that essentially all lead to the same results.
We all want the same thing.
We just want to feel better.
We just want to help people feel better and live life the way they want to live it.
Right.
And I find that sometimes, because you asked earlier, like, how does the mediumship fit in, or the psychic? And I'm deliberately using the word psychic because I know it has a bad rap, but it means of the soul. And it's your soul senses, basically, the flip side of the physical senses. And I want to reclaim it as in its rightful place. But, sometimes I'll just get that sort of knowingness, that, claircognizance, that type of thing. And I might just, what you said, like, suggest to the person, have you ever heard of this? You might want to Google this. Or I'll show here's a book I read that was really interesting, and I'll kind of just point them in this direction. If it's not the right thing and the right time, it just won't land for that person. That's true for all of us. I've had people tell me, oh, this was like the best book. And I started to read it and I'm like, I can't get through it. And I put it to the side. And then like 2 years later, I pull it back out. I'm like, wow, this is like the best thing because now the timing is right.
Right.
Or I believe in kind of stacking up modalities. I had a client once, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. I don't like it when we get sort of shame-based when people make their choices. If you don't agree with the choice the person made, it's not your business. They are the sovereign in their body. But that idea of looking at the fact that, yes, you are a physical body, and you are that energy body, and you're the emotional body, and the mental body, and the soul, and the spirit, a whole thing. So dealing holistically, she knew she was going for surgery and radiation and that aftercare. So she was going a conventional medical route. She went to talk therapists to be able to talk through the emotions, the shock of getting that diagnosis, and then the ongoing fear. And, so she had that support system in place. She came to work with me, rehearsing the way that we do with the subconscious mind, the most benevolent outcome. She would go and no complications, minimal bleeding, minimal pain. Like, and we were practicing that. So she was making use of hypnosis as well. She also worked with a nutritionist to have the diet before and the recovery diet like afterwards. And then she was going in addition to kind of deal with the stress for massage. I mean, she incorporated all of the things in some way.
All angles.
From all angles. It's not a competition. We just became part of her team.
Mm-hmm.
Like this was her treatment team.
Yeah.
And we weren't, and again, if she's taking pain meds and whatever other things were happening, like, great, whatever you need to do. But she also might have been working with hot packs and cold packs, So that idea of put it together, layer it up, maybe something is good for right now, and then maybe it's time to switch to something else, and then maybe it's time to come back.
Mm-hmm.
You are the one. Nobody knows but you, like what it's like to be in that situation. And so it really does bother me when people start to get like, whatever.
You have to do it
You have to do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
Pain meds, those are poison. You're poisoning your body. Well, that's okay, but that's your belief and that's where you're at. I respect that, but you're not this person.
Mm-hmm.
She gets to choose.
Right.
And then we're going to work with whatever she chose. We're going to work within that framework.
Mm-hmm.
And if she was like, I also want to do some fire ceremonies to honor my body and to thank my breasts and, all those other things, I'd be like, let's do it. We're going to go shamanic too. And if she was coming for Reiki and let's do it. To me, there is no only this or only that.
Right.
It's whatever works.
And that's a huge part of why I really enjoyed working with you as a colleague, right, is because I also know the methods that I'm trained in as a therapist that, if they're having insurance and they want these specific outcomes, the parameters that you work within as a specific kind of provider. I have so many people in my back pocket that I'm like, oh, it sounds like this person could be helpful here. And again, I'm not like prescribing. I'm not saying you have to go here and do this. We're hitting roadblocks. Have you thought about Reiki or acupuncture or chiropractic or nutritional? There's so many people in different ways. And again, as people and as a spiritual being, a holistic practice just makes more sense.
Oh, yeah.
But it can be really frustrating to know that you have to like stay in a certain lane. I'm actually getting insight and intuition during session. And how do I express this to people in a way that still feels valid in therapy specific ways?
Right.
But like, I know we've shared several clients where if we're getting stuck, they come see you. They have this really cool experience, which I always love when they're starting to tell me about it. And I'm like, oh, yes, this is so cool. But they come in and then it's like we have, 10 more sessions worth of content to work on now because that little switch of how we're looking at things or getting to things
or whatever was a little blockage just moved.
Yeah.
So it can flow differently. I have had all different kinds of therapy in my life and I found them all helpful in their own way. And I've had open heart surgery twice. I have been in the thick of it with the medical stuff. One of the things I found fascinating that you did for me. Now, I did a lot of work, sort of processing around the open heart surgeries and all the emotion that comes up around it and the fear and it's painful and it's all those it's a slow recovery, like all the things. But having that feeling years later of like, there's still something. It comes up every once in a while and I just don't understand. And I was like, but I know Mallorie who knows how to do like emotion code, body code, which I had read the book about and I could technically do it for myself. But sometimes it's
too close to it.
Right. You want to just sort of turn yourself over to someone else's hands and just be like, okay, help me with this. And one of the things in that process is identifying, a feeling that might have gotten kind of lodged in the tissues, basically. And I remember that the word that you came up with that came through the process when I thought of my heart was horror. And it was the most perfect word for what happens. Because, they cut your chest and they cut in there and they stop your heart. And that like the heart itself was like horrified of what happened. And I thought, wow, I could have talked about that for a long time, but I don't know that I would have come up with it. It was like an arrow that went right to the feeling. That one word encapsulated like the whole thing. And then we went on to do the rest of the process, and I could feel it. I could feel it shift while you were doing it. And it was just like, huh. So that feeling of like we are here in this together, like helping each other. If I have something that can be helpful to somebody, let me do it, and if it's not, if what I do isn't the right thing for them, okay, there'll be somebody else. But this idea that somehow we shouldn't ask for help, or we should just have this kind of like, just tough it out, just stuff the feelings down. No. I've had so many powerful experiences in my own life or with my own family members. How many times do we tell the joke where people will come who are just coming out of that metaphysical closet, who are just beginning to share their experiences? He'll be like, oh, you're going to think I'm crazy. And I'm like, no.
Not even close.
No, you're fine. Hit me with whatever it is, because even if I didn't experience it, I can make space for it. I mentioned the guy a while ago who I did the remote read for, who I know is his name, in central Nebraska. And one of the things that popped into my awareness was a small child sitting up in bed, a whole bunch of little gray aliens, like all around. And I was like, okay, we have that. Now, does that mean he was abducted? Does that mean he's interested in aliens? Does that mean he watched a scary movie when he was, 7? I'm not sure yet. So I started to ask my guidance, and I said, is he an abductee? No, visited. They were just, and they were benign. They were there to visit. But if you're a kid and you don't know, and you open your eyes and they're all standing there, it was this kind of like, okay, I'm going to convey this because this is what I got. I have no idea how this is going to land. But that's part of mediumship, is to just relay what you got. And then it's up to the person to tell me later. And there were other things in this reading, but that one, it segued like suddenly from some other things to just like, wow, little aliens, the classic ones, with the big dark eyes, little gray guys. And I was like, okay. So there's that.
Yeah. I think that's also a really cool part of, the spiritual work or being a therapist, having gratitude for the fact that people feel safe telling you the things that they're like, you're going to think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
And then you're like, nope, that's not crazy. Let's work with it.
Right.
Cool. And people are like, what?
Right. I don't have to know, did he actually see aliens? I don't have to have that even in my belief system to know that it might, if I'm coming at this from a therapeutic standpoint, it was powerful for him. So if somebody was to come to me and say, hey, I had this experience, I've never talked about it before, doesn't matter what I believe or don't believe. I mean, I don't have a problem with aliens personally, but again, it's about how do you feel about that? That kind of created a shockwave in your life. So let's look at how's it impacting you now, and let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So to me, you don't have to just stop and go, oh, we don't talk about that wacko stuff here. It's like, it's all part of the same continuum as part of just being a human being, having experiences.
What advice would you offer to therapists who want to better understand or validate clients' paranormal or spiritual experiences?
I think it's very helpful. You don't have to spend a lot of time in courses or anything else, but I do think it's helpful to read a few books about stuff.
Okay.
And, if you have somebody who's talking about UFOs and UAPs and abduction experiences, and you don't even know what those letters mean, well, maybe, do a little Google search, or, read a book, or go listen to a podcast about that topic. If you have very strong religious background, that idea of like working with angelic beings, guardian angels, that kind of thing might fit within your framework, but the idea of a spirit guide might not. So can you kind of lean into learning a little bit about some of those terminologies, like spirit guide? How is it different? How is it the same? Just want to kind of remind people that we talk about altered states like it's some kind of phenomena that happens Rarely. Where altered states is any state that is not a beta wave state. So you are in altered states all day long.
All the time.
When you go to sleep, you're in an altered state. Like when you are daydreaming while you're folding the laundry or raking the leaves, you are in an altered state. Now, some people get to that altered state through drugs or alcohol or lack of sleep or illness. If you're really sick and feverish, all those kind of things. But to embrace the idea that you as a being are designed to flow between these altered states. You do it all the time. And hypnotherapy, mostly happens in an alpha state, which is a lightly relaxed kind of daydreamy state, or theta if you're going pretty deep. You've been in a state of hypnosis probably already today several times. You just didn't call it that.
Right.
So it's just which words are we agreeing to use when we talk about these things. But it is natural and normal to go between, there's a gamma wave state that's very high frequency and can be associated with these sort of ecstatic experiences, these blissful, like, whoa, I almost like peeked behind the veil of reality and I realize how beautiful everything is, that kind of thing. But it can also be associated with people who are having a really intense PTSD flashback kind of thing where they are in it. They're no longer in the same room as you. They are. That actually happened during my hypnosis training 20 years ago. I didn't have any Reiki background, any shamanic background. I still fairly closeted about the metaphysical stuff. And we were learning a technique in my group for self-hypnosis, combining aspects of meditation and self-hypnosis. And we would practice it. It was my favorite part of the day because we would practice it at the end of the of the day. And we did it as a group. So again, group stuff tends to amplify everything. And we had a group member who was an older gentleman, sort of gaunt, very tired, very, I learned later that he can't sleep. He was a Vietnam vet, had really trouble sleeping, a lot of PTSD kind of stuff. And he looked like a person who was just worn out. And we were there having our group experience. And for whatever reason, he tipped into a flashback of being in Vietnam and being shot. And he had that experience it's the first time I'd ever witnessed it that close. My heart hurt for him because it was so powerful and he was disoriented and the teacher helped him and they left the room and you're left with this I feel for this person,
Yeah.
He left for the day. After that, it was really powerful. And so we went home and I can remember at the time that I was really disturbed by this and I was concerned for him and I wanted to send love or something. You just feel helpless. It's 3:00 in the morning. I can't sleep. I'm laying in bed. I'm just universe, why? After all these decades, does this man still have to suffer? I was mad at God, basically. Why is this happening? I had been reading the book at the time, Peace Like a River. Again, I could feel myself getting kind of worked up. It's not fair. He needs peace. He needs to be able to, sleep like a baby, like babies sleep. And I heard very distinctly a voice, which was not mine. Why don't you send him some? And I was like, because what does that mean? I don't what? I don't know how. And all this happened in a split second. I'm in darkness. My husband's asleep next to me. Out of the center of my chest, about this right around, I'm showing maybe 10 inches across. This aqua, blue light shot out of my chest across the room about 8 feet away and then just sort of disappeared into the air. So I sent him something, not consciously. I don't know how that happened, but it was this I could feel, I could see it physically with my eyes, this beautiful light. And I had the image of, if you hold a baby, that beautiful, that when they're just heavy in your arms and you're kind of rocking them. And I remember thinking, what the hell was that? What has just happened here? But anyway, I went the next day and this man came in and he was bright-eyed and he had color in his face like we've never seen and all these things. And he was actually late for the class. He said, something came over me around 3:00 in the morning. and I fell asleep, and I slept like a baby for 7 hours. So it was the exact same time, the same words I had used, slept like a baby, and it was 7 hours continuous sleep, which he had not done for decades. And I was just like, whoa, something happened there. Not because my conscious mind said, I'm going to heal this man, but because my heart was like, how can I help? How can I help? And bam, off it went. So do not underestimate yourselves. You think you're not doing anything, or you think that nothing's happening. It's just because that's your thinking mind. That's not where the power is.
I love that. I could listen to your stories for days on end.
I could talk forever, so sorry about that. Everybody would be tired of listening to me.
Jess, if you could let us know, how can listeners find or contact you?
Okay.
If they are interested in experiencing the work that you do, or just want to, follow up on your happenings.
I have a business Facebook page, which is Jessica Karas, and that's spelled Karas hyphen Mindworks Hypnosis.
Okay.
My business name is Mindworks Hypnosis Center, LLC. They can also, if people would like to, email me, and even if it's just with a question or whatever, it's the letter J, Karas, NEB. So JKARASNEB @gmail.com.
Okay.
And I have Instagram. It's just Jessica Karas @Jessica Karas. But again, I'm new to it, so there's not a whole lot of stuff there yet. But I do post, for example, if we're going to be doing an intro to energy and Reiki share event. But again, we do individual sessions, group things. We do development kind of things, all kind of things happening. So I'll put them either on the Facebook page or on the on Instagram.
Okay. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This was so much fun.
Yes, it was great. I love it.
It brings up all the memories in it. And just one story leads to another story, leads to another thing.
So it's all connected, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Mallorie.
Thanks for joining us. And just for those listening, I will be having Jess back at some point. She's got all the stories, so she might just become a regular on here.
Cool. Love it.
Again, thanks so much for joining.
Okay, that wraps up part 4 of my conversation with Jess Karas, and I hope this exploration of shamanic and holistic healing offered some inspiration. Healing doesn't always follow a linear path, and Jess so beautifully shared it's often through connection to ourselves, spirit, and community that true transformation happens. Jess is truly a wealth of wisdom, and I'm so grateful for the insights that she's brought to this series. Don't worry, this won't be the last time you hear from her. So, if you're curious about working with Jess, you want to learn more about the practices that we've discussed, or if you have questions you want us to explore in future episodes, don't hesitate to reach out. You can email me at theliminalmind25@gmail.com or send a message on Instagram at theliminalmindpodcast. I am going to include the links to Jess's socials and her work in the show notes, so be sure to check her out and support the powerful healing that she brings into the world. And as always, if this episode resonated with you, please share it, follow the show, and consider supporting us on Patreon to keep this space growing. Until next time, what matters most isn't what we experience, it's how it transforms us.